Today, we are honored to have an opportunity to hear Kara Yan-Han from UNICEF speak about her work with UNICEF. Living in the society that we do, we take for granted the accessibility to pure water. But this is not true for many other parts of the world. Please give a warm welcome to Kara.
Well, obviously, I am not Kara, but I wanted to say a few words. My name is Ann Holmes. I live here in the Woodlands. It is an honor and a privilege for me to be here today for many reasons, but one of the foremost reasons is that I had two sons that graduated from the John Cooper School, one in '97 and one in '99, way back in the day before this was even a thought in anybody's mind. So it's good to see all of you here today. I am the chairman of the board for the U.S. Fund for UNICEF here in Houston. It is the job of the U.S. Fund to raise awareness and funds for the international organization of UNICEF. Kara is here today to talk to you about water. Water is a very important ongoing job that UNICEF does all over the world. Water is important to all of us, as you well know. We have droughts in the United States, we have the problems in Flint, Michigan, and around the world we have places that never have had clean drinking water that UNICEF has brought to them through community wells that have changed and transformed the lives of the people in the villages. In addition, it has alleviated the need for the young girls and women of the community to walk miles and miles to get water every day. UNICEF also provides water in emergencies and in refugee camps around the world. All NGOs in the time of a big emergency under the umbrella of the United Nations Commission on Refugees has a role to play, and UNICEF's role is water and sanitation. So all these refugee camps that are ongoing now around the world, UNICEF is in there providing water and sanitation. I have known Kara for I don't know how many years now, because one of my particular interests in UNICEF has been children with disabilities, and Kara has been a champion for those children. Actually, Kara has been a champion for children since she was 6 years old and found out that there were children in other parts of the world that were hungry and didn't have enough food. And I could stand up here for 45 minutes and talk about her life and all the wonderful things that she has done, but I don't want to take away from her wonderful presence and your being able to enjoy her today. So we're going to begin with a little video, and then Kara will be speaking to you. Thank you so much for having us.
Nazo obligé tongo setani na ki makukiti matinée pona ke lukaka mai fona kita na sena toka mai na sukwa bilamba bana de loko ande pesa biso passe maka donc mai wana e amabe pesa na infection ta risque dans les salité propreté donc ça bien to souffrir makasi pona mai donc to senga ke mai za la soin ils appellent bien pour bana ni ke pe ba sukwa ba pona bango ezobeba donc bien kate.
Avant ça, les femmes allaient puiser dans de distances qui dépassent même 1 kilomètre. Mais actuellement, avec la technique de forage manuel, le forage est proche des ménages. Ça, c'est notre premier objectif. Et puis, on vient réduire le taux de mortalité, surtout aux enfants de 0 à 5 ans et aux femmes. C'est ça l'avantage. 200 000 personnes pratiquement qui sont desservies déjà par la technique de forage manuel. C'est pratique pour nous, surtout dans le milieu rural. C'est vraiment la technique appropriée et puis ça nous permet d'atteindre les objectifs du millénaire que la RDC s'est assigné.
Kombo nangai ezali mama Kushadi Marie-Jeanne. Nazo remarqué neti malaria ezaki kotumisa bana mbalebele ezali te banyama ya libumu. Ezali te vraiment normal.
Quelle maladie vous pouvez éviter en buvant de l'eau potable? Utiliser de l'eau potable pour éviter les maladies diarrhéiques comme typhoïde, choléra, et aussi se laver les mains avec de l'eau et du savon. Utiliser une latrine hygiénique. C'est ça les messages qu'on passe au niveau de ce programme. Et là, la communauté s'est impliquée, c'est le programme de la communauté. C'est la communauté qui fait la gestion même de leurs points d'eau et la gestion de tout ce qui est eau, assainissement et hygiène. Il y a plus de villages qui ont accès à l'eau potable maintenant parce que c'est moins coûteux, c'est 5 fois moins coûteux qu'un forage mécanisé.
Good morning, everyone. It is an absolute pleasure to be back at the John Cooper School, and thank you very much to Ann Holmes for her leadership and bringing me to meet all of you. My name is Kara Yarkhan. I am a former child protection specialist with UNICEF, the United Nations Children's Fund, and I've had the honor of working in 9 different countries in the developing world over a span of 13 years, crossing all continents. Sometimes in emergency operations, such as the Sichuan earthquake emergency in Beijing. Also, I spent 2 years in Haiti after the devastating 2010 earthquake. Coming to the United States afterwards as a spokesperson, particularly for children with disabilities, because they are the most marginal and vulnerable children in the world. I myself, as a woman living with a disability just the past few years, I'm very proud to work for an agency that not only protects the rights of children around the world, but also their staff. How many of you watched the Oscars? Hands up. Not bad. And did you see Leonardo DiCaprio's acceptance speech? Yeah? Not bad, right? Pretty good. Good stuff. If you didn't watch Leonardo DiCaprio's acceptance speech or see the Oscars, his hot topic is climate change. Leo is so passionate about this, he takes it so seriously that he has advocated as high as the office of the Pope to talk about these serious issues. Now, while many people don't necessarily see climate change as an imminent threat to humankind, most often because they don't understand it, they just think, it's a lot hotter this winter, or it's snowing a lot more in June in a place like maybe New York. Gosh, I hope that doesn't happen. But not having access to clean water or safe sanitation, which are related issues to climate change, is actually a matter of life and death for millions of children all over the world. A fact that seems totally unfathomable here in the United States, in the city of Houston, or in this palace that is your school, the John Cooper School. How many of you don't even think twice about letting the tap run while you're brushing your teeth? Or how long you stand in the shower because you just want to relax, chill out, and have a moment? How many of you don't think twice about the amazing magic that is one tap, you turn it on and it comes out hot, and the other tap, you turn it on and it comes out cold, every single time? How many of you don't think about throwing away a cup that's full of ice after you've finished your soda? That's one of the largest footprints of climate change, is ice. How many of you don't think twice about not washing your hands properly with soap each and every time you use the restroom? And I don't mean a little sprinkle under the water. I mean getting in there with the soap and really properly washing your hands. How many of you don't even notice or feel grateful or take a moment to have perspective with the fact that the toilet in your home and here at your school is private, clean, and safe, where you are not at risk? Believe me, if you knew, you would think differently and you would act differently. If you knew that swallowing water, say while brushing your teeth in some countries, could leave you vomiting. I mean severely, violently vomiting. You would think and you would act differently if safe water wasn't just a given. If you knew that infested waters carried parasites and insects that not only could make you sick, but that could lead to lifelong impairments or disabilities, and in some cases, even kill you. You would think and act differently if you did not know when that tap was going to run dry, or when there might not be electricity to pump the water through the pipes to come up to your house, or for how long that electrical outage might last. You would think and you would act differently if you only had a limited supply of water and you had to learn how to ration it. And I'm talking about a 1-liter bottle every day to wash your face, wash your hands, your entire body, and if you got hair like mine, long hair. Especially after a day in the tropics, how much do you think that 1 liter of water can do? I lived like this for 13 years in 9 developing countries all over the world. So you can imagine my culture shock when I moved to the United States for the first time in 2013. And a bottle of water, people were paying $3, $4, $5, not for a gallon, for a little bottle of water. I was flabbergasted. And when I hear people complain that they don't like the taste of tap water, it's safe. It won't hurt you, and it's free. This was one of the biggest elements of culture shock that I had when I moved to the United States in 2013. Can you imagine when we complain about the taste of tap water, what it must be like for a child who drinks muddy water and that grit and grime is left on their tongue? They have no choice. It took me about a month when I moved to the United States to remember that out of the left faucet was going to come out really hot water, and out of the right faucet was going to come out cold water. I burnt my hands every single day, telling myself, oh, I forgot, shoot. I'd go to the office and I would remind everyone, oh, I burnt my hand again. These little things that we don't even think about were in very small ways impacting me and making me remember how different and how privileged we are here in the United States. And in the United States, when it rains outside, the streets don't flood so much that in the morning it's floating with garbage and feces. And then that will be left on the streets because the sewers haven't been cleaned. And this happened in Haiti all the time, spreading illness, infections, and death. In the displacement camps in Haiti after the earthquake, 1.6 million people were displaced. And I made many friends, mothers, fathers, children, and we lost baby John at the age of 6 months old because after heavy rain, the camp had flooded, and his mother didn't understand why she couldn't control her baby's diarrhea or that dehydration would lead to his death. 946 million people, with 9 out of 10 of them living in rural areas, still practice open defecation. So yes, I'm talking about doing number 2 in an open field or a gully or on the grass or maybe on the street if you're in a rural area. 946 million. No privacy, no safety, no water to clean yourself, not much at all. 663 million people, or 1 in 10, do not have access to improved or safe drinking water. That's our source of life. You can go 3 weeks without food, but you can only go 3 days without water. 55% of schools around the world lack adequate sanitation facilities. I just use your bathrooms. They're quite nice, actually. 49% of schools don't have adequate water. I generously wash my hands with soap and water after using the restroom. Something we don't even think about, right? These are massive numbers, these millions that I've told you about. And quite honestly, it's really impossible to fathom. What does that really mean? So let's break it down. Let's simplify this equation to 1 little boy or 1 little girl, a single child under the age of 5. I would like you to raise your hand if you have a sibling, a cousin, a niece, a nephew, a neighbor, a child in your life who's 5 or under. Please raise your hand. Look around. And because I know you love them so much and you would do anything to protect them, on the count of 3, I want you to say their name out loud. 1, 2, 3. Whether it's little Tommy, little Susie, Jessica, Christina, little Ahmed, little Fatima, whoever they may be, this is a child in your life who you would do anything to protect. What would you do to keep them safe? What would you do to keep them healthy? What would you do to ensure that they could go to school? And at school, just like at home, they will be safe from disease, impairments, or death. UNICEF, the United Nations Children's Fund, in the field we are not an NGO, we're a United Nations agency, has a seat at the highest level decision-making tables. So with your prime minister, your president, your secretaries of state, and your ministers. But at the same time, we keep an ear on the ground in the community, engaging with mothers and fathers and children to understand what is happening. UNICEF around the world is the moral authority on children. We are authorized by governments to share our expertise, our funding, and our leadership. And in the case of emergencies, it is UNICEF that is the head of what we call the WASH cluster. This is the cooperation of every organization, whether it's an NGO, civil society, government, United Nations agency, could be a church group, could be a military group. Everyone that's working in the area of water and sanitation is coordinated by UNICEF. And we're not only making sure that there is water that is trucked in, maybe to a disaster site, or that electrical lines are fixed so that water pumps work, or that we're providing jerry cans to families, sometimes this large, sometimes smaller, like these ones you see on the stage. Some of them, we even make them child-friendly, because can you imagine a 4-year-old lifting that? You're going to have the chance to lift it, and I challenge anybody to try and walk up the stairs. But we're also working to provide chlorine tablets to make sure even filtered water then is properly chlorinated. We provide soap to ensure that when kids are using the latrines that we set up for them, that they're washing their hands with soap so not to contract a disease. Did you know that the lack of safe water and sanitation in the world is the single largest cause of illness and the second highest cause of preventable childhood deaths, with thousands of children dying every single day because of waterborne illnesses? The lack of adequate sanitation facilities around the world is just as deadly. 1 gram, think of how small 1 gram is. 1 gram of feces contain viruses, bacteria, parasites, cysts, eggs. These water and sanitation-related illnesses include diarrhea, and I know that's not a very sexy topic to talk about, but it kills, diarrhea, 2.2 million children, mostly under the age of 5, every single year. It means today, 2,000 children will die because of diarrhea. You're about 500 people, 450 people in this room. All those lovely little children, you said their names. Imagine them and 3 more of their friends dying today because of diarrhea. We don't think about it. Raise your hand if you've ever heard of malaria. Somebody scream out to me, how do you catch malaria? Right, mosquitoes, right? Malaria is a disease that's actually exacerbated by poor drainage and uncovered water. In endemic countries, you see swarms of mosquitoes hovering over pools of dirty water, whether it's on the ground when you walk by, or very often there are huge buckets or jerry cans or troughs where water is stored in case the electricity goes out and the pumps don't work, where the generators are down. So when you think about it, we never make that correlation between clean water and malaria. But malaria kills 1 child every 30 seconds. So by the time I finish speaking to you today, 40 children will have died of malaria. 3,000 children will die today because of malaria. Over 1 million people die every single year because of malaria, mostly children under the age of 5. Millions and millions of more people are infected, and I was one of them. I lived in Angola for 2 years. It's a country in southern Africa. I had malaria 5 times in a period of 8 months. I can't tell you what it's like, the pain. 3 days, you cannot move, you don't eat, you're sweating, then you have chills, you have fevers. It's like the flu times 1,000, and you never think you're gonna make it. And I'm an adult, a healthy woman with access to medical care. It's no wonder that children so easily die. In addition, hand washing with soap. Think how many of us really properly wash our hands with good soap. Not that stinky stuff, you know, that smells like lavender or lemon or this or that, but soap that actually has a cleaning agent in it. When you wash your hands with soap, it dramatically reduces respiratory illnesses, such as pneumonia. Often we don't even realize that there is that connection to clean water, washing our hands with soap, and pneumonia. Did you know that it is the #1 cause of child mortality around the world? And we can curb it by teaching children to wash their hands with soap every single time they use the restroom. For those who are living without access to safe water supplies, finding water, carrying water can become a chore that eclipses all others. And it's a burden that is often done by women and by children, and it can have a profound detrimental impact on a child's future. As mentioned, it's women and children, especially girls, who are most often the ones who collect water for the family. Sometimes they're walking miles and miles and miles, and in the case of children, they are at risk of being sexually and physically abused. They are at risk at being trafficked to become sex slaves or labor slaves. They are at risk of hurting themselves and falling and being injured, all while trying to fetch water. Often, when you do have a water point in a community, they will spend hours and hours and hours in line. In about 90 countries around the world, including countries such as Nicaragua, Iraq, Sudan, Colombia, Vietnam, and Uzbekistan, many girls miss school simply because they have to collect water for the whole family, or they have to stay home to take care of someone who has contracted a waterborne disease, because these waters are infected with parasites. Of the children who do attend school, many are faced with the same challenges of infection and disease. Do you ever think when you come to school every day that you might get sick from the water? You don't have to, because it's clean. You don't have to worry about malaria, because if there are mosquitoes out in the summer, they don't have it. The water is not infected. A lack of clean water for drinking and for hand washing, and the absence of private and adequate toilets compromises a child's ability to learn, and it can often cause them to leave school altogether. Sometimes when you get a headache in the afternoon, you've been looking at the computer long, you've been listening to your classes, often it's because you're dehydrated. Your brain is dehydrated. You have a headache. What do? You open up a bottle, you take a sip of water, you get a soda or a juice, all water-based. We take a drink, right? Simple as that. We don't think twice about it. Girls especially are vulnerable to having to drop out of school. Many of them drop out when puberty hits. They don't have privacy. They don't have clean water to keep themselves clean. And also the stigma and discrimination. Just the stress. Ladies, can you imagine the stress? I mean, it's bad enough having periods. I'm sorry, guys. You have no idea what it's like. But on top of that, then to have the stress of not having clean water or privacy at your school, we're so lucky. We're so fortunate. Did you know that the diarrheal diseases that I talked about are caused by that lack of safe water, sanitation, basic hygiene? These are the leading causes of death of children under the age of 5 all over the world. In this country, you just take Pepto-Bismol, you know, that really nasty pink stuff, and then you drink Gatorade or some sort of electrolytes to feel better from it, and it can be cured. Maybe your mother, your father, someone gives you a Tylenol or some other painkiller to get rid of the cramps. We have so many simple solutions here, but not in developing countries. In fact, this fight against diarrheal diseases, hygiene education, including hand washing with soap, it is the single most cost-effective health intervention. Hygiene education, it's not only important to help children stay safe and protected away from disease, but it actually changes behaviors and attitudes in the family. It's great to say, let's wash our hands with soap, but you're never going to change someone's behavior if you first don't educate them, change their attitude, and then in order to see them change their behavior. I would like you to raise your hand if you have heard of an illness called cholera. Wow, you guys are smart. It's awesome. You guys are easy. Which country had a major outbreak of cholera after a devastating earthquake? Just scream it out. Haiti. 10 months after the 2010 earthquake, where All schools were destroyed. 2/3 of the government ministers were killed. All of the government buildings, including the presidential palace, were destroyed. 10 months, there was an outbreak of cholera from contaminated water. 500,000 people, 500,000 people, 5% of the total population of Haiti were infected with cholera, and 9,000 people died. I mentioned 500,000 people were infected, and I was one of them. Again, I thought malaria was bad. 3 days I could not stand. Fevers, violent vomiting, excessive diarrhea. All I could do was wince and fall on the floor when I had to get attention to be nursed back to life. And I had access to a hospital. I had access to electrolytes. I had access to someone help keep me safe. It's no wonder that a child can't survive cholera. And how did I get it? I was eating safe food. I was drinking safe bottled water in Haiti, because you can't drink out of the tap there. Because I used to go to the displacement camps every weekend to play with the kids, to get to know them, to let them see that I had a disability and I was a proud woman working for the United Nations, that they could go to school. They believed in themselves and they fought for their rights. But these kids didn't have access to safe water, didn't have good hygiene practices. So all those wonderful cuddles led to my infection. But I survived. 9,000 people didn't survive. During an emergency, whether it's a natural disaster or if it's a conflict, getting children into school and to child-friendly spaces to establish that sense of normalcy is the most effective child protection measure that we can take. So rather than running around as unaccompanied children, whether it's within the camp, where often in displacement camps or in refugee camps there's a lot of gang violence, or searching in garbage dumps for plastics or something that they can recycle or sell, or sometimes even food scraps, or going along the streets and trying to sell maybe some pens or something that they might have been given by a pimp, sell on the black market, and then having the risk of either being physically or sexually abused or trafficked. Children need to be in school. And when they're not in school and they're out on the streets and they're unaccompanied like that, they're even more susceptible to disease, to injury. And so children need to be in the classroom. This is where, as mentioned, they can not only be protected, return to that sense of normalcy, but then UNICEF can also implement all other programs that are their human right, from vaccination to psychosocial support, to giving them warm clothes, to helping them participate in feeding programs. School actually saves their lives. School keeps them healthy. School is often the only place where they will drink clean water and have the opportunity to use a safe latrine. Do we ever think about that when we come to school in the United States? Or I was raised in Canada. In Canada, no. School is a place where, oh, there's too much homework, and oh, there's too many exams, and oh, I can't talk to my friend because she's in the other classroom. It's just thinking about the privilege of coming to school and how safe it is a wonder. Of all of the children in the world that UNICEF supports, strives to help, the most vulnerable and those most marginalized are children with disabilities. There are 93 million children under the age of 15 with disabilities in the world, of which 80% live in developing countries. People with disabilities, children with disabilities, face the most difficulty in accessing clean water and basic sanitation throughout the developing world. However, these challenges, they will vary. So it's not a one-stop, one-fix solution. They will vary according to country, according to culture, the geographical context, rural or urban areas, mountains, fields, big city, small city, also on the type of disability that a person has, mental, cognitive, physical, or a combination of. Children with physical impairments can face technical barriers as a consequence of the design or location of facilities such as toilets or schools. And this can also talk about water pumps or wells, that difficulty of carrying water. And that's if they have the assistive device, whether it's a walker, a wheelchair, canes, etc., leg braces, to be able to get around. Just thinking about a long way to walk or an uneven floor or slippery floor, poor lightings, these can all be impediments for children with disabilities to using a latrine or to going to school. In some cultures, there are also additional social barriers, which result in children with disabilities facing stigma and discrimination, so their parents overprotect them and don't send them to school. And if there isn't clean water or an accessible toilet, it's another barrier, and they don't get to go at all. So lack of access to water and safe sanitation has significant consequences. Children with disabilities often can't even afford to go to school, and they won't if they're not safe. If there are no safe, accessible facilities in the home or in the community, on the flip side, family members might not be able to go to work, they'll have to give it up, or older siblings will have to stay home from school to take care of someone with a disability in the home. And this is particularly an issue for girls. Again, girls with disabilities once they reach puberty and they're dealing with their menstruation. Children report, they tell us that they tried to drink less water or consume less during the day so that they don't need to use the restroom. And this just leads to more headaches, illness, and them not learning. It has a direct impact on the quality of education, and even more so on them staying in school and graduating. It's impossible for me to overstate the impact of clean water, drinkable water, and safe and accessible sanitation in our lives. Far from being a source of merely drinking and bathing water, it's needed for all types of industries: agriculture, production, household, ore, mining, mineral extraction, livestock, husbandry, other commercial uses. The amount of water that we use every single day to make products is vastly more than you could ever imagine. A kilogram of rice, 1 kilo of rice, it takes 265 to about 790 gallons of water to produce 1 kilo of rice. Bless you. Who's wearing a cotton shirt, cotton t-shirt? Here, put up your hand if you're raising a cotton shirt, undershirt, tank top, whatever. Do you know how much water it makes to cultivate enough cotton for 1 t-shirt? 400 gallons. It's again having perspective of the t-shirt that we wear to school, what impact that has on someone else in the world. The world's freshwater resources are becoming more and more contaminated. It is affecting weather patterns. It's having a direct impact on children in the developing world and their access to clean water, and in turn, their ability to go to school and get an education. Water is a limited natural resource. It's fundamental for public good and for our lives. It is actually a human right that we have to access water, because with water, we can actually live our lives with dignity. It's actually the prerequisite for all other human rights that we have, is access to clean and safe water. I understand now why Leonardo DiCaprio is so passionate and seriously concerned. Imagine, 70% of the Earth's surface is covered in water, but only 3% of that is actually water safe for us to drink. And so, while I don't claim to understand, as does Leonardo DiCaprio, everything about climate change, I have witnessed with my own eyes children suffering needlessly and missing out on the chance to go to school, stay in school, and graduate. But through my work with UNICEF and its partners, there are more communities and there are more schools every year that are accessing clean, safe water, safe sanitation that's accessible, and learning about good hygiene practices so that they can grow up with dignity. So we, you and I, we can have perspective and be grateful for the clean water that we have, the safe toilets in our school, and the ability to go to school and to get an education. And by supporting UNICEF, we're going to put children first and save more lives. So thank you very much.